Not able to right now. That was cool. I can't believe I did that. What the heck? I'm not able to right now. That was cool.
She had lost everything: her home, her name, her dignity. But on a freezing December night, Chloe Miller found something in the icy black waters of the Hudson River that would change the underworld forever. She didn't see a Mafia don. She just saw a man drowning in a sinking armored Audi. She dove in. She dragged 200 pounds of dead weight onto the jagged rocks, shivering and alone. She expected a thank you. Instead, she got pulled into a blood feud that would burn the city to the ground. When the devil owes you a life debt, you don't get paid in cash. You get paid in blood. The wind off the Hudson River didn't just bite. It chewed through the layers of mismatched wool and polyester Chloe was wearing. She pulled her knees tighter to her chest, trying to preserve the little heat she had left. Her home, for the last 3 months, had been a recessed concrete alcove under the pillars of the George Washington Bridge, a spot hidden enough from the police patrols, but exposed enough to the brutal New York winter. She checked the battered Casio watch she'd found in a donation bin. 2:14 a.m. The city above her was asleep, but down here in the shadows of the docks, the silence was heavy, almost threatening. Chloe closed her eyes, trying to ignore the gnawing hunger in her stomach. She used to have dreams. 2 years ago, she was halfway through a nursing degree at NYU, scrubbing in for clinicals, laughing with friends over bad cafeteria coffee. Then came the debt, the eviction, and the spiral she couldn't pull out of. Now her biggest ambition was finding a pair of dry socks. Screech! The sound tore through the silence like a gunshot. Chloe's head snapped up. Tires squealed against asphalt, followed by the sickening crunch of metal hitting concrete. She scrambled to the edge of the embankment, peering through the darkness. 50 yards away, a sleek black Audi A8 had smashed through the guardrail. It hung precariously over the edge for a split second, teetering like a suicide jumper, before gravity won. Splash! The car hit the icy water with a massive plume of spray. It didn't float. It was heavy armored plating, dragging it down instantly. Chloe didn't think. The instinct that had made her a great nursing student, the instinct to save to fix to heal, kicked in before her brain could register the danger. She tossed her threadbare blanket aside and sprinted across the frozen mud. The car was sinking fast. The nose already submerged, the tail lights glowing eerie red under the black surface. "Hey!" she screamed, her voice cracking. "Get out! You have to get out!" No movement inside. The driver was unconscious. Chloe looked at the dark, freezing water. Jumping in there was suicide. Hypothermia would set in within minutes. But she saw a hand slap against the driver's side window, a desperate, weak palm print against the glass. "Damn it!" she hissed. She took a breath that burned her lungs and jumped. The shock of the cold was like a physical blow. It punched the air out of her. She kicked hard, her boots feeling like lead weights, and swam toward the sinking luxury sedan. She grabbed the door handle, locked. The water was rising past the window now. She treaded water, gasping, and saw the man inside. He was slumped over the wheel, blood matting his dark hair. He was massive, broad shoulders filling the seat. She needed to break the window. She couldn't. It was reinforced glass. Think, Chloe. Think. The car tilted the heavy engine block, dragging it deeper. The rear end lifted slightly. The trunk. She swam around to the back. The trunk latch had popped slightly from the impact of the crash. She jammed her frozen fingers into the gap and pulled. It groaned hydraulic resistance fighting her, but the water pressure hadn't sealed it yet. With a scream of effort, she yanked it open. She scrambled over the back seats, shoving aside a heavy duffel bag that felt like it was filled with bricks. The water was pouring in now, icy brine swirling around her waist. She grabbed the driver by the collar of his suit jacket. "Wake up!" she screamed, slapping his face. He groaned, his eyes fluttering open. They were dark, unfocused, and terrifyingly cold. "Move!" she yelled. He tried, but his legs were pinned. The steering column had collapsed. The water was at his chin. "Leave me," he rasped. His voice was a deep baritone wrecked by pain. "Shut up and push!" Chloe braced her legs against the dashboard, grabbed his shoulders and pulled. He was heavy, solid muscle and dead weight. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. He gritted his teeth and shoved backward. The steering column groaned, releasing his leg just as the water covered his nose. Chloe hauled him backward over the center console, dragging him into the back seat. The car tilted vertically, beginning its final descent to the riverbed. "Out now!" They tumbled out of the open trunk just as the Audi was swallowed by the Hudson. The suction pulled at them, trying to drag them down with the wreck. But Chloe kicked furiously, one arm wrapped around the stranger's chest. She broke the surface, gasping for air, dragging him with her. He was barely conscious, his head lolling back. "Don't you die on me!" She panted, swimming one-armed toward the rocky bank. "I did not just freeze to death for a corpse." She hit the mud and clawed her way up, dragging him inch by painful inch. He was huge, easily 6'3", over 200 pounds. Chloe, malnourished and exhausted, had to use every ounce of leverage she had. She finally pulled him onto the dry concrete under the bridge, safely away from the water. She collapsed beside him, her chest heaving, her vision spotting with black. For a long minute the only sound was their ragged breathing and the distant hum of traffic on the bridge above. Chloe forced herself to sit up. She was shivering violently. She needed to get them warm, or they would both die of exposure. She crawled over to him. "Hey," she said, slapping his cheek lightly. He coughed, turning his head and spitting up river water. He blinked, his vision clearing. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for a second, Chloe felt like prey. "Who?" He coughed again. "Who sent you?" "Nobody sent me." She snapped, her teeth chattering. "I pulled you out of the river. You're welcome." He tried to sit up, but winced, clutching his side. His hand came away red. He was bleeding from a gunshot wound just above his hip. Chloe's medical training flared. "You're shot." "Grazed," he corrected, though his face was pale. He looked around, scanning the shadows with a predator's intensity. "Did anyone follow the car? I didn't see anyone. Just you crashing like an idiot." He slumped back against the concrete pillar, closing his eyes. The adrenaline was fading and the cold was taking over. Chloe saw the shivers starting to rack his body. "We need to get warm," she said. She scrambled to her little stash of belongings, hidden behind a loose slab of concrete. She pulled out her dry blanket, the good one she saved for emergencies, and a small bottle of rubbing alcohol she used for sanitation. She crawled back to him. Up close in the dim light of the city, she realized just how out of place he was. His suit was ruined, but the fabric was silk and wool custom-made. On his wrist was a watch that probably cost more than her entire life's earnings, a platinum Rolex Daytona. "Take off the jacket," she ordered. "It's wet and freezing." He looked at her, his eyes narrowing. "I don't even know your name." "I'm the girl saving your life again. Jacket off." He hesitated, then nodded. He winced as he peeled the sodden jacket off. Underneath he wore a white dress shirt that was now transparent with water and stained with blood. Chloe worked quickly. "I need to look at the wound." She lifted his shirt. The bullet had torn a jagged line across his oblique muscle. It was ugly, but it hadn't hit an organ. "It needs stitches," she muttered, "but I can clean it and bind it." "You a doctor?" he asked, watching her hands. "Nursing school dropout," she said, pouring the alcohol onto a rag. "This is going to sting like hell." She pressed the rag to the wound. He didn't scream. He didn't even flinch. He just inhaled sharply through his nose, his jaw muscles clenching tight enough to snap bone. "You're tough," she noted. "I've had worse," he grunted. She wrapped his waist tightly with a strip of dry cloth she tore from an old t-shirt. Then she draped her dry blanket over his shoulders. "You need a hospital," she said. "I can walk to the payphone at the gas station and call 911. "No." His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist with terrifying speed and strength. Chloe froze. His grip was like iron. "No police," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "No hospitals. If you make that call, I'm dead. And probably so are you." Chloe stared at him. The expensive suit, the gunshot wound, the armored car, the refusal of police. "You're in trouble," she whispered. "I am the trouble," he corrected. He released her wrist slowly. "My name is Hunter. I need a place to lay low for 24 hours, just until I can make a call on a secure line." "This is it." Chloe gestured to the concrete alcove. "This is my place. It's not exactly the Ritz." Hunter looked around the grim, damp shelter. He looked at the meager pile of belongings, a backpack, a few books, a half-eaten bag of chips. Then he looked at Chloe. Her face was smudged with dirt, her hair a tangled mess of wet curls, her lips blue from the cold. "It's perfect," he said. He reached into his wet trousers and pulled out a money clip. It was soaked, but the $100 bills inside were still valid. He peeled off a stack, easily $2,000. He held it out to her. "I need dry clothes, food, and a burner phone. You get me those, and there's 50 grand in it for you when I leave." Chloe stared at the cash. That was enough to get her into a hostel for months, enough for food. "I don't want your drug money," she said, though her hand trembled. "It's not drug money," Hunter lied smoothly. "It's construction. Look, do you want to help me or not? If not, I'll walk out of here and take my chances." He tried to stand and immediately stumbled, his face going grey. Chloe caught him. "Sit down, you stubborn ass." She snatched the money from his hand. "I'll get your stuff, but if you die in my spot, I'm dragging your body back into the river. I don't need the cops finding a dead mobster in my bedroom." Hunter actually chuckled a dark, raspy sound. "Deal." Chloe pulled her oversized hoodie tight, hid the cash in her boot, and turned to leave. "Hey," Hunter called out. She stopped. "What's your name?" "Chloe." "Chloe," he repeated, testing the weight of it. "Don't come back if you see a black Cadillac Escalade circling the block. If you see that, you run. You run, and you never look back." Chloe swallowed hard, nodded, and disappeared into the night, left alone in the freezing dark. Hunter Russo. The Don of the Russo crime family leaned his head back against the graffiti-covered concrete. He touched the bandage at his side. He had been betrayed. The meeting tonight was a setup. The brakes on his car had been cut, and a shooter had been waiting on the overpass. Someone high up in his organization wanted him dead. He looked at the empty spot where the girl had been. She had eyes like a frightened deer, but the heart of a lioness. She had no idea what she had just dragged out of the river. He closed his eyes, his hand drifting to the hidden pocket in his ankle holster where he kept his backup blade. If they come for me here, he thought, I'll kill them all. But as the wind howled through the bridge struts, Hunter realized something unsettling. For the first time in 10 years, his life wasn't in the hands of his soldiers or his lawyers. It was in the hands of a homeless girl with holes in her boots. And strangely, he felt safer with her than he did in his own penthouse. The drone was the first problem. The bullet that chipped the concrete inches from Chloe's ear was the second. "Move!" Hunter roared, shoving her forward. The adrenaline spiked through Chloe's system, overriding the exhaustion and hunger. They scrambled up the rocky embankment toward the Henry Hudson Parkway. Above them, the black Escalade had screeched to a halt on the shoulder of the highway. 2 men were out firing suppressed pistols down the slope. Pfft, pfft. The sound was deceptively quiet, like a staple gun, but the dirt kicking up around Chloe's boots was terrifyingly real. The maintenance hatch. Hunter pointed to a rusted metal grate set into a concrete block near the base of a bridge pylon. It was chained shut. "It's locked!" Chloe screamed, skidding to a halt in front of it. Hunter didn't slow down. He pulled a compact Sig Sauer P365 from his ankle holster, a gun Chloe hadn't even realized he was hiding. He pressed the muzzle against the heavy padlock and fired twice. Sparks showered them. The lock shattered. Hunter kicked the grate open. "In go." Chloe squeezed through the opening, dropping 6 feet into total darkness. She landed hard on a pile of damp trash, rolling to absorb the impact. Hunter dropped in right behind her, pulling the grate closed just as a bullet sparked off the metal rim. "Did they see where we went?" Chloe whispered, her voice trembling. "Maybe." Hunter winced, holstering the gun and clutching his side. The exertion had torn his stitches. "But they can't follow us down here easily. This leads to the old service tunnels for the A-Line subway." He pulled a small tactical flashlight from his pocket, a Phoenix PD-35, and clicked it on. The beam cut through the thick, stagnant air, revealing a narrow concrete tunnel, dripping with condensation and slime. "It smells like death." Chloe gagged, pulling her hoodie over her nose. "It smells like safety," Hunter corrected. "Come on. We need to put a mile between us and that grate before they cut the lock." They began to walk. The tunnel was uneven, littered with decades of debris-rusted soda cans from the 80s rotting timber and scurrying rats the size of kittens. Hunter was moving slower now. His face, illuminated by the backscatter of the flashlight, was slick with sweat. He was leaning heavily against the tunnel wall as he walked. "You're bleeding again," Chloe said, noticing the dark stain spreading on the grey sweatpants she'd bought him. "I'm fine," he grunted, though his breath was coming in ragged hitches. "Just keep walking. We need to get to the 168th Street junction. There's a vent there that comes out behind a derelict warehouse." "That's 20 blocks north," Chloe argued. "You won't make it." "I have to." They trudged on in silence for 20 minutes. The silence of the underground was oppressive, broken only by the distant rhythmic thrum-thrum of subway trains passing in parallel tunnels. "Talk to me," Hunter said suddenly, his voice tight with pain. "Distract me." "What do you want to talk about?" "You, nursing school. Why did you drop out?" Chloe hesitated. She usually never told anyone her story. It was too shameful. But down here, with a dying mob boss, the rules were different. "My mum got sick," she said softly. "Pancreatic cancer. It was aggressive. The insurance company denied the claim for the experimental treatment she needed, said it was elective. Hunter let out a harsh laugh. Insurance companies are the only crooks worse than me. I took out loans, Chloe continued, kicking a crushed plastic bottle. Maxed out credit cards. I stopped paying tuition to pay for her chemo. I thought if I could just save her, I'd figure the money out later. Did it work? No, Chloe whispered. She died 6 months later, and I was left with $100,000 in debt and no degree. The bank took the house, the landlord took the apartment, and I took to the streets. Hunter stopped walking. He turned the flashlight on her. The beam was blinding, but she didn't look away. You gave up your life for family, Hunter said, a strange reverence in his voice. In my world, that's the only currency that matters. Loyalty. It didn't save her, Chloe said bitterly. But it saved your soul, Hunter countered. He leaned closer, his dark eyes intense. Carlo, the man who betrayed me. He's my cousin, my blood. I gave him everything. I made him a capo, and he sold me out for a seat at the table with the Russians. He grimaced, doubling over as a spasm of pain hit him. He dropped to one knee. Hunter. Chloe caught him, her arms straining under his weight. I need to sit, he gasped. Just for a minute. We can't stop. They're coming. I can't. His eyes rolled back slightly. The infection was moving fast, or maybe it was internal bleeding. Chloe looked down the dark tunnel. She was terrified. But then she looked at Hunter. He was the first person in 2 years who had looked at her with respect, not disgust. Get up, she ordered, grabbing his arm and draping it over her shoulder. You are Hunter Russo. You scare people for a living. Do not let a little graze wound take you out. Hunter looked at her, blinking through the haze of pain. A smirk touched his lips. You're bossy. I'm a nurse. We're bossy by nature. Now move your feet, tough guy. She hauled him up. Together they stumbled forward into the dark, a 3-legged creature dragging itself toward salvation. But as they rounded a corner, a light appeared ahead. Not daylight, flashlights, multiple beams bouncing off the wet walls. Search pattern, Hunter hissed, killing his own light instantly. They're in front of us. They guessed the exit. They were trapped. Victor Moretti's men were ahead, and the locked grate was behind. The side tunnel, Hunter whispered, pointing to a small, jagged hole in the brickwork that looked like a storm drain. It's tight, but it leads to the tracks. The live tracks? Chloe asked, eyes widening. Better to be hit by a train than caught by Brutus. He pushed her toward the hole. They squeezed through the rough bricks, scraping their skin, and dropped down onto the gravel bed of the active subway line. The third rail hummed with lethal electricity just inches from their feet. And in the distance, the tunnel was beginning to glow. A train was coming. The wind rushed past them, hot and smelling of ozone. The lights of the oncoming A-train grew brighter, the screech of steel on steel deafening. Against the wall, Hunter yelled over the noise. There was a small cutout in the tunnel wall, a safety niche for track workers. They threw themselves into it, pressing their bodies flat against the grime-covered concrete. The train roared past them, a blur of silver and light. The noise was a physical assault shaking their bones. Chloe buried her face in Hunter's chest, squeezing her eyes shut. He wrapped his arms around her, shielding her head with his hand. For 30 seconds, the world was nothing but noise and wind. When the last car rattled past, leaving them in the red glow of the tunnel signals, Chloe was shaking uncontrollably. You okay? Hunter asked, his voice right in her ear. No, she managed to say. Definitely not okay. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He pulled away, checking the track. We're close to the 168th Street station. We go up to the platform, blend into the crowd, and get out. Blend in? Chloe looked at him. You look like you've been shot. And I look like, well, me. We're New Yorkers, Chloe. Nobody looks at anybody. Just keep your head down. They moved quickly along the catwalk, staying in the shadows until they reached the end of the platform. Hunter timed their movement perfectly, slipping through the "Do Not Enter" gate just as a crowd of commuters disembarked from a downtown train. They merged into the flow of people. Hunter leaned heavily on Chloe, acting the part of a drunk boyfriend or a sick commuter. People glanced at them and immediately looked away, the universal city code of not my problem. They made it up the elevators and out into the crisp afternoon air of Washington Heights. The sun was blinding. I need a car, Hunter muttered, scanning the street. And a phone. The burner is compromised. We can't steal a car, Chloe whispered. There are cops everywhere. She was right. A cruiser was parked at the corner, officers chatting with a vendor. Taxi then, Hunter said. He raised a hand, but he swayed dangerously. He was fading fast. A yellow cab screeched to a halt. Chloe shoved Hunter into the back seat and climbed in. Where to? The driver asked, eyeing them in the rearview mirror. Mount Vernon, Hunter rasped. Make it quick. $100 tip. The driver's eyes widened, and he hit the gas. Hunter gave an address in a quiet, leafy suburb just north of the Bronx. As the city skyline receded, Hunter's head lulled onto Chloe's shoulder. His skin was burning hot against hers. Stay with me, she whispered, taking his hand. It was rough, calloused, and surprisingly large, engulfing hers. I'm here, he mumbled. Just tired. The cab pulled up to a modest two-story brick house with a manicured lawn. It looked painfully normal. A tricycle was overturned in the driveway. This is the safe house? Chloe asked, confused. My sister's place, Hunter said, opening his eyes. The one place Carlo would never look, because he knows I promised her I'd never bring the life to her door. And you're breaking that promise. I'm desperate. They paid the driver and waited for him to leave. Then Hunter stumbled up the walkway and rang the doorbell. A moment later, the door swung open. A woman stood there, holding a toddler on her hip. She had Hunter's dark eyes and sharp jawline, but her face was soft with maternal warmth. Her eyes went wide. Hunter, hey, Sophia. He smiled weakly. I need a favor. Then his eyes rolled back and he collapsed face first onto her welcome mat. The next 6 hours were a blur of controlled chaos. Sophia, it turned out, was not just a suburban mom. She was a former trauma surgeon who had left the ER to raise her kids. She didn't scream. She didn't panic. She just handed the toddler to her husband, a terrified accountant named Mark, and pointed to the living room. Get him on the table. Mark, get the kids upstairs and turn up the TV. Chloe, wash your hands. I need you to assist. They turned the dining room table into an operating theater. Sophia cut away the cheap sweatpants and examined the wound. It was infected and ugly, but the bullet hadn't nicked the bowel. I have lidocaine and antibiotics in the safe, Sophia said, snapping on gloves. Hunter always keeps a go bag here. I hated it, but today I'm glad for it. Chloe worked side by side with Sophia, handing her instruments, swabbing blood, and holding the flashlight steady. For the first time in years, Chloe felt useful. She wasn't a homeless girl. She was a nurse. She anticipated Sophia's needs before she asked. You have good hands, Sophia noted as she stitched the wound closed. Steady. I trained at NYU, Chloe said quietly. You're good. Sophia tied off the last suture. He's going to live, but he needs rest. They moved Hunter to the guest bedroom. He was deeply unconscious, sedated by the painkillers Sophia had administered. Sophia turned to Chloe. Now you. Me. You look like you walked out of a war zone. The shower is down the hall. There are clean clothes in the guest closet. Use whatever you want. Chloe stood under the hot water for 45 minutes. She scrubbed the grime of the river, the tunnel, and the streets from her skin. She watched the grey water swirl down the drain, taking her old life with it. When she stepped out, she found a pair of soft jeans and a cashmere sweater laid out on the bed. She dressed and looked in the mirror. The girl staring back was thin, her cheekbones sharp from hunger, but her eyes were bright. She looked human again. She walked downstairs. The smell of roasted chicken filled the house. Sophia was in the kitchen. Eat, Sophia ordered, placing a massive plate of food in front of her. Chloe ate until her stomach hurt. When she finished, she found Sophia watching her with a sad smile. He talks about you, you know, Sophia said. He met me yesterday, Chloe said. He was delirious. Hunter doesn't trust anyone, ever. But he let you drag him halfway across the city. He brought you here. That means something. Just then a groan came from the guest room. Chloe rushed in. Hunter was awake, trying to sit up. Stop moving, she scolded, pushing him back down gently. Sophia stitched you up. You rip those stitches and I'll kill you myself. Hunter blinked his eyes, focusing on her. He stopped. He stared. Who are you? He whispered. Chloe flushed. It's me, idiot. Chloe. Hunter looked her up and down, taking in the clean hair, the fresh clothes, the absence of dirt. His gaze was intense, lingering on her face. You clean up nice, Doc, he murmured. You don't look so bad yourself when you're not bleeding out, she retorted, sitting in the chair beside the bed. Where's Sophia? Downstairs. She saved your life. Hunter sighed, rubbing his face. I put them in danger. I have to leave. You can't walk, Chloe said. And besides, you need to see this. She turned on the small TV on the dresser. The news was playing. Breaking news. Police are searching the Hudson River for the body of construction magnate Hunter Russo. Russo's car was found submerged early this morning. His cousin, Carlo Russo, has issued a statement asking for privacy. The screen cut to Carlo. He was standing at a podium, looking somber in a black suit. He was handsome, but his eyes were reptilian. My cousin was a visionary, Carlo said to the cameras. We are devastated, but the Russo group will continue. We are finalizing the merger with the Volkov Consortium this Friday, as Hunter would have wanted. Hunter's face went cold. The playfulness vanished. The killer was back. Friday, Hunter hissed. That's 2 days from now. He's selling the shipping routes to the Russians. He's going to flood the city with fentanyl. What can you do? Chloe asked. Everyone thinks you're dead. That's my advantage, Hunter said. He looked at Chloe. I need to get into the Russo Tower, into my private office. I have the evidence on a secure drive that proves Carlo is embezzling. If I release that to the commission, the other families will kill him for me. You can't get into the tower, Chloe said. It'll be a fortress. I can't, Hunter agreed. But a new cleaning lady could. He looked at her. No. Chloe shook her head. Absolutely not. I am not a spy. Chloe. Hunter reached out, taking her hand. His thumb brushed over her knuckles. You saved my life. You're the only person in this world I trust right now. Help me take him down. Help me get my life back, and I swear to you, you will never be cold or hungry again." Chloe looked at his hand holding hers. She looked at his eyes. It wasn't just about the money anymore. She hated Carlo for what he did to Hunter. And she realized with a start, she didn't want to leave Hunter. "What do I have to do?" she whispered. Hunter grinned a wolfish, dangerous grin. "We're going to crash a funeral." But before they could formulate a plan, the phone in the hallway rang. Sophia picked it up. "Hello." Silence. "Hello," Sophia repeated. "Tell your brother he shouldn't have missed Sunday dinner," a deep voice said. Sophia dropped the phone. "Hunter!" she screamed. Hunter was out of bed in a second, ignoring the pain. "Get down!" Crash! The front window shattered as a canister of tear gas flew into the living room. It hissed, spewing white smoke. "They tracked the cab," Hunter roared, grabbing Chloe. "Back door! Now!" They sprinted through the kitchen, grabbing Sophia and Mark. They burst out the back door into the backyard, only to find 3 men standing there, guns drawn. Standing in the middle was a man in a white suit holding a cane. It was Carlo. "Hello, cousin." Carlo smiled, his eyes landing on Chloe. "And you must be the little mermaid who fished him out. I have to say you're much prettier without the mud." Hunter stepped in front of Chloe. "Let them go, Carlo. This is between us." "Oh, Hunter!" Carlo shook his head, raising a gold-plated pistol. "It's far too late for negotiations." He cocked the hammer. "Kill them all!" The air in the backyard hung heavy with the scent of cut grass and impending death. Carlo's finger tightened on the trigger of his gold-plated pistol. Hunter stood in front of Chloe, his body a human shield, his eyes locked on his cousin. "Do it!" Hunter growled, his voice low and devoid of fear. "But know this, Carlo. The moment you pull that trigger, you start a war you can't finish. Leo is already moving." "Leo is loyal to the crown," Carlo sneered, "and I wear the crown now." He raised the gun higher, aiming for Hunter's forehead. Vroom! The sound came from the side street behind the fence, a deep guttural roar of a diesel engine pushed to its limit. Before Carlo could react, the wooden privacy fence exploded inward. A massive, matte, black, armored SUV smashed through the wood splinters, flying like shrapnel. It drifted sideways across the lawn, tearing up the turf, and skidded to a halt between Hunter and Carlo's men. The rear doors flew open. 2 men in tactical gear poured out, automatic rifles raised. "Get down!" one of them roared. Hunter tackled Chloe, dragging her to the ground, just as the air filled with the deafening crack of gunfire. Carlo's men returned fire, diving behind the garden planters. Bullets chewed up the exterior of the brick house, shattering windows and shredding the patio furniture. "Boss, move!" A giant of a man jumped from the driver's seat of the SUV. He was bald-bearded and built like a tank. It was Leo. He unleashed a barrage of suppressing fire toward Carlo's position, forcing the traitor to scramble back toward the alleyway. "Leo!" Hunter yelled, dragging Chloe up. "Get Sophia and Mark." "They're already in the secure van out front," Leo shouted over the noise. "We got the perimeter. We have to go. Hunter Moretti's reinforcements are 2 minutes out." Hunter grabbed Chloe's hand. She was frozen, her eyes wide with terror, staring at the bullet holes in the wall where she had been standing seconds ago. "Chloe!" Hunter shook her. "Run!" They sprinted for the SUV. Bullets pinged off the armored plating like hail. Hunter shoved Chloe into the back seat and dove in after her. Leo jumped into the driver's seat, threw the truck into reverse, and slammed the gas. The SUV bucked, crushing the remains of the fence as it roared back onto the street. Tires screamed as Leo spun the wheel, accelerating away from the house, just as 3 more black Escalades turned the corner, sirens blaring. "Hold on," Leo yelled. A high-speed chase erupted through the quiet suburban streets of Mount Vernon. The SUV was heavy, but it was fast. Leo wove through traffic, running red lights, the heavy bumper ramming a sedan out of the way. In the back seat, Hunter was checking Chloe. "Are you hit? Check yourself." Chloe ran her hands over her body. She was shaking violently, but she was whole. I'm okay. Sophia, the baby." "Secure team has them," Leo called from the front. "They're en route to the safe house in Connecticut. They're safe, boss." Hunter let out a breath he'd been holding since the morning. He leaned back against the leather seat, wincing as his wound throbbed. "Carlo got away," Hunter said, his voice cold. "He thinks you're running," Leo said, checking the rearview mirror. "He thinks he won." "Let him think that," Hunter murmured. He looked at Chloe. She was staring out the window, watching the city blur by. She looked small in the expensive sweater, but her jaw was set. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't cried. "You did good," Hunter said softly. Chloe turned to him. "You live like this, every day." "Not every day," Hunter admitted. "Usually the meetings are more boring. Less gunfire." "I saved your life," Chloe said, her voice trembling with a mix of adrenaline and anger. "And you almost got me killed." "I know," Hunter said. The playfulness was gone. He looked haunted. "I'm sorry, Chloe. I should have let you walk away that first night. I was selfish." He reached into his jacket pocket, which Leo had stocked with supplies, and pulled out a thick envelope. "Leo, pull over at the next train station." "Boss," Leo asked, confused. "Pull over." The SUV screeched to a halt near a Metro North station. Hunter handed the envelope to Chloe. "There's $10,000 cash in there, and a passport. It's clean. Take the train north. Go to Canada. Start over." Chloe looked at the envelope. Then she looked at Hunter. He was giving her an out. He was trying to save her the only way he knew how, by pushing her away. "You're going back, aren't you?" she asked. "I have to," Hunter said. "Carlo is going to sell the company to the Volkovs tomorrow. If he does that, he brings fentanyl into my city. I can't let that happen. I have to finish this." "You're going to walk into a trap," Chloe said. "I'm going to walk into my funeral," Hunter corrected. "Tomorrow is the memorial service. That's where he's signing the deal. It's the perfect stage." Chloe looked down at the money. It was freedom. It was safety. It was everything she had prayed for while shivering under the bridge. She looked up at Hunter. She saw the pain in his eyes, the loneliness of a king with no court. She thought about the way he had defended her in the backyard, the way he had looked at her not as a homeless girl, but as an equal. She tossed the envelope onto the floor of the car. "Drive Leo," she said. Hunter stared at her. "Chloe, don't be stupid." "I'm not being stupid," she snapped. "I'm being a nurse. You have busted stitches, a fever, and a death wish. You need backup. And frankly, your boys aim worse than stormtroopers. You need me." "You could die," Hunter warned. "I was already dying under that bridge," Chloe said fiercely. "At least this way, I die doing something that matters. Now shut up and tell me the plan." Hunter looked at her for a long moment. Then a slow, dangerous smile spread across his face. "Okay," he said. Leo, take us to the warehouse. We have a funeral to crash. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel smelled of white lilies and expensive hypocrisy. Massive crystal chandeliers cast a golden, shimmering light over the assembly of New York's dark elite. To the outside world, this was a memorial service for a tragic accident that claimed the life of a construction magnate. Inside these walls, it was a coronation for a usurper. Chloe Miller adjusted the stiff collar of her white catering shirt, her hands trembling slightly beneath the heavy silver tray of champagne flutes. Just 48 hours ago, she had been shivering under a bridge invisible to the world. Now she was walking into the lion's den, surrounded by men who killed as easily as they breathed. Steady. Leo's voice crackled in her ear. The tiny flesh-colored earpiece was invisible under her hair, which was pulled back in a severe, tight bun. You're just a ghost, Chloe. Nobody looks at the help. Keep your head down. Target is the AV station to the left of the stage. Chloe took a deep breath, forcing her heart rate to slow. She stepped out from the service corridor and into the sea of black suits. The room was suffocatingly crowded. Every major crime family on the East Coast was represented. There were the heads of the 5 families, corrupt union leaders, judges with gambling debts, and standing near the front, looking like a vulture in a bespoke suit, was Nikolai Volkov, the head of the Russian Bratva. And on the stage, standing beneath a massive wreath-adorned portrait of Hunter, was Carlo Russo. He looked the part of the grieving cousin perfectly. He dabbed at his dry eyes with a silk handkerchief. His posture slumped just enough to suggest the weight of the world was on his shoulders. Hunter was more than a cousin to me. Carlo's voice boomed through the high-quality sound system thick with manufactured emotion. He was my brother, my mentor. He built this family from the ground up with honor. And though his light has been extinguished by this tragic accident, his vision must survive. Must. Chloe felt a surge of nausea. The man was a monster. Keep moving, Leo whispered. He's winding up for the transition. Once he finishes the eulogy, he calls Volkov up to sign the merger. We have to interrupt the feed before that pen hits the paper. Chloe weaved through the crowd. Champagne water, she murmured, her voice low. Most of the men didn't even acknowledge her existence. They just took glasses from her tray without breaking their gaze from the stage. Hunter was right. To them, she was furniture. She reached the tech table near the side of the stage. A young man with a headset and a bored expression was monitoring the audio levels and the slideshow of Hunter's life playing on the massive screen behind Carlo. Chloe's heart hammered against her ribs. This was the choke point. If she failed here, Hunter, who was waiting in the service elevator with Leo's strike team, would walk into a slaughter. She purposely stumbled, allowing the tray to tip. 3 empty crystal glasses slid off and shattered on the parquet floor with a loud crash. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," Chloe gasped, dropping to her knees to pick up the shards. The sound tech jumped, ripping his headphones off. "Watch it. You almost spilled that on the console." "I'm sorry I'm so clumsy," Chloe apologized, looking up at him with wide, panicked eyes. "Please don't tell the manager I need this job." The tech rolled his eyes, bending down to help her clear the glass so she would leave faster. "Just clean it up and go." It was the opening she needed. While he was looking at the floor, Chloe's left hand shot up to the laptop sitting on the table. She pulled the encrypted USB drive from her apron pocket and jammed it into the side port. Her fingers flew across the trackpad. Enter. Run executable. Override. "What are you doing?" The tech looked up, realizing she wasn't picking up glass anymore. Chloe stood up instantly, the tray clutched to her chest. Nothing. Just checking the time. Sorry. She turned and walked away fast, her heart beating so hard she thought she might pass out. It's in, she whispered into the comms. Did it work? Loading now. Leo replied, his voice tense. The file is big. We need 30 seconds. On stage, Carlo was reaching the climax of his performance. He straightened his tie, the grief vanishing to be replaced by a steel-hard business resolve. To honor Hunter, Carlo announced, gesturing to Volkov. We must ensure the strength of our supply lines. I invite our friends from the Volkov Consortium to join me. Together, we will bring a new era of prosperity to this city. Volkov stepped forward, a shark-like grin on his face. The room rippled with murmurs. Everyone knew what this meant: fentanyl. Poison flooding the streets, sanctioned by the Russo family. 20 seconds, Leo said. Chloe was near the back exit now. She just had to slip out and the fireworks would start. But as she passed a massive pillar, a hand clamped onto her upper arm. It felt like a bear trap. Going somewhere, little rat. Chloe froze. The blood drained from her face. She looked up into the cold, dead eyes of Brutus Carlo's head of security, the man who had hunted them under the bridge. He wasn't looking at her uniform. He was looking at her eyes. I need to refill the tray, Chloe stammered. Brutus sneered. He reached out and ripped the glasses from her face, tossing them onto the floor. I never forget a face, especially one I saw through a sniper scope. He twisted her arm behind her back, forcing a cry of pain from her lips. Carlo! He roared, his voice cutting through the applause like a thunderclap. Hold the ceremony. The room went deathly silent. Volkov froze halfway up the stairs. Carlo looked down from the podium, annoyed. Brutus, this better be important, Carlo snapped. We have a spy, Brutus shouted, dragging Chloe toward the center aisle. He shoved her forward, so hard she stumbled and fell to her knees in the center of the ballroom. The girl from the river. She's here. A collective gasp went through the room. Carlo's face went pale, then red with rage. He descended the stairs, walking toward Chloe with slow, predatory steps. Is that so? Carlo sneered, stopping inches from her face. His expression twisted between mockery and revulsion. The heroic little nurse. I really thought you were smart enough to take the money and disappear. He turned to the room, spreading his arms. This is what mercy buys you. You spare a rat, it crawls back to sink its teeth in. From inside his jacket, Carlo drew a gold-plated Desert Eagle. The metallic click of the safety snapping off cut through the silence. Hunter is dead, he said calmly, pressing the barrel to her forehead. And now his pet follows. Chloe didn't flinch. He's alive, she said, her voice trembling but steady. And he knows. Carlo's finger tightened. Goodbye, nurse. Screech! The speakers screamed. The screen behind them flickered, then revealed rain-soaked footage from 48 hours earlier. Carlo froze, and the room exploded. The voice didn't come from the speakers. It came from the back of the room. It was deep resonant and terrifyingly familiar. The double doors at the entrance swung open with a heavy thud. Hunter Russo stepped into the light. He looked like an avenging angel. He was dressed in an impeccable black suit, though his left arm was in a sling. His face was pale, emphasizing the dark fury in his eyes. Behind him stood Leo, and a phalanx of 20 heavily armed enforcers, their assault rifles raised and ready. "Hunter," Carlo whispered. The gun in his hand lowered his strength, failing him. "You." "I saw the car go in." Hunter began to walk. The limp from his injury only made him look more dangerous, like a wounded lion coming for the kill. The crowd parted instantly, men scrambling to get out of his path. They looked at him with awe and terror. He was the man who came back from the dead. "You tried to drown me in the Hudson," Hunter said, his voice carrying without a microphone. "You tried to hunt me down like an animal. You tried to kill the woman who saved me." He stopped 10 feet from Carlo. He looked at Brutus, who was still standing over Chloe. "Brutus," Hunter said calmly, "step away from her, or die where you stand." Brutus looked at Carlo, who was trembling. Then he looked at Hunter, the true Don. The choice was simple. Brutus holstered his weapon and took 3 large steps back, leaving Carlo alone. "It was business," Carlo shrieked, backing up until he hit the stage. "The family was stagnating, Hunter. I did it for us." "You did it for greed," Hunter said, stepping closer. "And you broke the one rule that matters. Never betray your own blood." Carlo's eyes darted around the room. He saw no allies. Volkov had already signaled his men to stand down. The Russian wasn't going to die for a failed coup. Panic took over. Carlo raised the gold pistol again, aiming it squarely at Hunter's chest. "I won't go to prison," Carlo screamed. "If I go down, I take you with me." Hunter didn't flinch. He didn't even reach for a weapon. He just stared his cousin down. But Chloe moved. From her position on the floor, she saw Carlo's finger squeeze. She didn't think about the danger. She didn't think about nursing school. She saw the backup pistol that Leo had slipped into her apron pocket, just in case. She drew it. It was heavy, awkward in her hand. Bang! The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. Carlo screamed, dropping his gun. He clutched his right hand, which was now a shattered mess of blood and broken bone. Chloe's shot had been low, missing his chest, but obliterating his hand. Carlo fell to his knees, wailing in agony. Silence descended on the room. Everyone turned to look at the girl on the floor. The waitress, the homeless girl, the nurse. She was holding the smoking gun with 2 hands, her chest heaving, her eyes wide with shock. Hunter looked at Carlo, then slowly turned his head to look at Chloe. A slow, proud smile spread across his face. "I told you," he said softly, ignoring the room full of gangsters. "You have steady hands, Doc." Leo and his men rushed forward, securing Carlo and dragging him away. "Get him out of here," Hunter ordered. "The police can have him. I want him to rot in a cell for the rest of his miserable life." Hunter walked over to Chloe. He reached down with his good hand. Chloe looked at the hand of a killer, or the hand of the man who had offered her his watch when he had nothing else. She took it. He pulled her to her feet, pulling her close into his side. She could feel the heat radiating off him, the solid beat of his heart. Hunter turned to face the room. He looked at Volkov. "The deal is dead," Hunter announced, his voice cold iron. "The Russo family does not traffic in poison. We do not sell out our city. If you want to do business in New York, you do it on my terms, or you don't do it at all." Volkov nodded slowly, a sign of respect. "Understood, Don Russo." Hunter looked out at the sea of faces. "And one more thing." He tightened his grip on Chloe's waist, pulling her slightly forward. "This woman," Hunter said, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling. "Chloe Miller. She is the reason I am standing here. She is under my personal protection. From this day forward, she speaks with my voice. Anyone who disrespects her, disrespects me. Anyone who threatens her answers to me. Is that clear?" A chorus of voices, loud and unified, rang out from the assembly. "Yes, boss." Hunter looked down at her. The adrenaline was fading, leaving Chloe trembling again. But this time, it wasn't from cold or fear. "Let's go," he whispered. "Where?" she asked, her voice barely a squeak. "Home," Hunter said. "I believe I owe you $50,000. And dinner." "I think your rates just went up." She managed to joke, though tears were stinging her eyes. "Name your price," Hunter said, leaning down and pressing a kiss to her forehead in front of everyone. "I'm yours." As they walked down the center aisle, leaving the shattered glass and the ruined plans of lesser men, behind them Chloe knew her life under the bridge was over. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was the woman who had walked through the fire and dragged the devil out with her. And looking at Hunter, she realized he wasn't the devil after all. He was just a man who had been drowning, waiting for someone brave enough to save him. The doors swung shut behind them, closing the chapter on the old Chloe and beginning the story of the new Queen of New York. And just like that, the girl who was invisible to the world became the only person the Mafia boss truly saw. Chloe proved that loyalty isn't bought with money. It's earned in the fire. Hunter got his kingdom back, but he found something much more valuable in that freezing river, a partner who would walk through hell with him. Carlo is in prison. The Russo family is stronger than ever, and Chloe, well, let's just say she finished nursing school. But she runs the biggest charity hospital in the city, now paid for by the Don himself. If you enjoyed this story of survival, betrayal, and romance, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you never miss a new story. What would you do if you found a billionaire in a sinking car? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.